Thank you for joining today's webcast. This presentation is being recorded. The webcast console allows you to customize your experience through actions like maximizing your slide window. You can also minimize, resize, and move other windows to create a configuration that works best for you. Beside the slide window is the Q&A tool. You can enter a question at any time and click Submit. In the Downloads and Links window, you can access valuable content-related resources. We encourage you to explore the icons in the dock at the bottom of the console. Now, please welcome your host for today's webcast.
Good morning and welcome. Thank you all for joining us here today on the first installment of our virtual lead-up to our ConvergeHEALTH Product Advisory Council sessions this March. For those of you I haven't met, my name is Ryan Hoffmeister and I lead our life sciences suite of products for ConvergeHEALTH. The reason we're doing these, and this is again a little bit different than years past, I think for folks that were with us last year, we had an all virtual product advisory council due to the pandemic. And this year, as we're transitioning from all kind of virtual work back to a hybrid model, we wanted to take the same approach with our product advisory council. And so doing a series of these virtual lead-ups, I'm really just meant to be a little bit more informal conversations with some of our clients around some of the key topics that they're covering. And really just to start getting some of the dialogue going. I'm well in advance of hopefully seeing everyone out in Denver this March on the 21st. And 22nd. Today, I'm very excited to introduce our guest client, Fabrice Bocquillon, who's the Vice President of IT and the Head of Patient Services and Market Access for Digital at Sanofi. So I'll turn it over to Fabrice and ask him to give a bit of an introduction as we get started. Fabrice.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Ryan. Again, thank you for having me. So my pleasure to be able to relate our story around patient services and our collaboration with ConvergeHEALTH today.
Excellent. Very well. So I think, and if you saw some of the meeting controls, there is a Q&A piece of this, and would encourage everyone to enter questions into the Q&A as you go. I think there'll be plenty of time at the end of this to really have a discussion. All of the Q&A is actually anonymous, and so as you put it in, I can read them out at the end of this and we can answer questions. But really just wanted to get in a little bit of a conversation with Fabrice here. And Fabrice, kind of first thing, and maybe just some overall framing questions for this audience. Can you give a little bit of background on just kind of the landscape of patient services at Sanofi and some of the overall business goals that you're trying to achieve?
All right, sure thing. It's a broad question, but yeah. So obviously, supporting our patients is our first priority at Sanofi. And I realize when I'm saying that, I'm saying basically nothing. So let me a little bit maybe of the history of how it came to us. Obviously, we are a pharma company. Patient services has always been embedded into our core services and processes. However, I think the turning point for us has been the acquisition of Genzyme in 2009. And when we did so, that was a very deliberate acquisition of a culture more than anything else. Genzyme has been a precursor in the realm of patient services. So Genzyme was, if you don't know the history of Genzyme, which I assume not many do, was really focused on rare and ultra rare diseases, had that very high touch relationship with the patients. And when we acquired Genzyme, that was kind of the aha moment and the blooming phase for us in terms of patient services. We acquired the culture. We made it, obviously, it took 10 years, but we really made it part of our corporate DNA as a company. Today, everything at Sanofi is patient-focused. And we've got a variety of patient services. They are all different in natures and configuration, but basically covering all the specialty care brands and therapeutic areas, so rare diseases, rare blood disorder, multiple sclerosis, etc., etc. And it has been quite successful and pervasive up to our more general medicine brands, neuroscience, heart disease, diabetes, etc., etc.
Excellent. And so, with that, very broad portfolio across many different TAs, can you just maybe give some context, background on how the systems were built, what the thought process was in bringing that landscape together from a technology perspective to support that portfolio?
Yeah. So, going back to that DNA and spread of culture, it's a bit of the good, the bad, and the ugly story, right? The good is we have been very successful at it. It's really part of our DNA today. The bad is that we did that for the most part with a not very tight operational governance. So the result is that our ecosystem is quite fragmented today. We have many different flavors of patient services, as I said, their own interpretation due to the country regulations, but also their own interpretation from one therapeutic area to the next one. So a very fragmented ecosystem, basically. So, and that's that's a bit of the ugly part of the story. Is now that we have created that spaghetti plate, is how do we take control back over it? And what we have in mind, and this is what is shaping our initiatives today and our strategic program, is how do we retake control over the patient experience? Everything has become complicated, and not just because we were loose in terms of governance, because the regulations became more and more fragmented themselves, more and more stringent, more and more different from one country to another, or even sometimes from one state to another in the US. So what we want to achieve, and that was really the launching pad of our internal transformation, is how do we take control back over the patient experience, create an ecosystem around them that is serving their purposes, but also as well, how do we take control back over the data streams which are associated to it and which are our raw material to some extent to derive the right actions to support our patients.
Sure. Well, you preempted my next kind of question there, which was really going to be on some of the biggest challenges, right? But you mentioned kind of that control over the data. You mentioned the increasing complexity of global regulations. Were there other kind of big challenges from a patient service perspective, from a business insights perspective that you were looking or that existed in that previous landscape?
Yeah, I think when I say take control over the experience and the data, I mean, if I look into more of what does it mean and what does it take, it first, and that's Sanofi's answer to it. I assume there may be different ones, but we took the decision to, okay, we won't go anywhere if we don't build a solid digital core, something more robust than what we have today. And I think that's the first piece of the answer. The second part is it requires skills and it requires speed as well, because we cannot spend the next 10 years building something that is going to be obsolete when we need it. Things are happening today. The ecosystem is changing today, and the patients are here today looking for solutions. So it's really about, I think our core pillars are, build that core. What does it take? It takes the skills, it takes the technology that we don't have the time, it requires the speed and the efficiency that we have lost over time, actually.
Cool. So, maybe then, if that's the landscape today and kind of pivoting into the journey that you started with Deloitte and with ConvergeHEALTH, can you maybe just give a little bit of background for this group? What's the journey that you've been on? What was the starting points that you started actually working on some of those pillars?
Yeah, absolutely. So to your question, and as I was saying, we wanted to start now, we wanted to start big, and we wanted to start quick. So we quickly came to the realization that even if we were very aspired to build things by ourselves, we were definitely lacking the critical mass and the skill set to do it. So obviously, we started by our own due diligence in trying to find the partner and the solutions and the skills to help us build that ecosystem. And that's how we started our program. If I go a bit further in where do we stand today, I think we started. It's not I think we started in early May of this year. At that stage, we are actually right on time to relate our first early success. Our MVP1 has been released last week. It's what we call our Insight component. It has been developed for our Dupixent drug. It's running on the CPH platform, so the core connected patient hub. And we are now gearing up to our second MVP based on Connect, and that one is going to be the patient CRM for our rare blood disorder franchise. I'm mentioning those steps. So these are the two first steps we are making up to releasing into production, because it's our strategy to proceed in a very agile way, but also build things on purpose, contained in scope. So we are developing MVPs at that stage and trying to bridge gaps where we can, where the urgency is, and where we have the capacity, the functional capacity to do it on the short term. So it's our strategy, being agile, move toward things which are truly delivering an outcome, and building the overall digital health platform one piece at a time and with one TA at a time.
Sure. Yeah, so a very kind of thoughtful, agile approach to what is a fairly significant technology transformation. I'm just curious, are there lessons learned along the way, either from a technology perspective, a people perspective, or even a broader ecosystem perspective that you think would be beneficial for this group?
Sure thing. So I will come back on agility, because that's definitely a good part of lessons learned for us. But I think if I start by the beginning, I was blessed to have a great team to lead that project, and with very deep functional expertise. However, we underestimated our own internal complexities. The patient ecosystem in a pharma company has become extremely sophisticated, extremely integrated with the outer world, the hubs, the specialty pharmacies, the external data partners, the payers, and the distribution providers. So I think we had a good grasp on what we were facing. We knew we were in for a massive transformation of our ways of working. Nonetheless, we still underestimated its complexity, and I think that's probably a lesson to share with everybody, because I'm pretty sure that the other companies or other players in that same ecosystem are going to live the same if they are not already. Then the second lesson, and I'm not sure it's a new lesson, but also a good reminder, it's always hard to build a plane in flight. And this is what we're doing. We cannot disrupt our business. We cannot stop providing our patients with their drugs. We cannot stop looking for helping new patients on specialty drugs, for instance, or very rare diseases. And as we are renovating or rebuilding our digital core, we need to keep the brands running. So obviously the run is here. They need to keep running, but they also keep evolving at high pace to follow the new regulations, to follow the new therapeutic tactics that we can set up. And we had to apply a lot of planning and a lot of tactical planning in the execution to be able to build the plane in flight. And I think this is where I'm looping back on agility. The beast is so big and complex that it's a typical program, project, you name it, where it would be extremely hard to try to specify everything and then enter into a more of an implementation / engineering phase. So we decided to end agile, to be very purposeful in developing only things which are meaningful and are going to actually deliver an outcome we can evidence in one way or another. And that's maybe the biggest lesson, is that agility does apply to the most complex programs, and it's actually proving to be the right way to break down those big problems into smaller chunks, which are mind-sized and that we can actually solve.
Nice. Cool. So I like that, and the kind of focus on agility and outcomes. I'm curious, right, as you think about those outcomes and everything that you're doing is in service ultimately of the end patient. What do you think about in terms of the future needs of the patients, how patients are going to want to be engaged, and how you see them thinking about kind of the life sciences and biopharmaceutical industry engagement as a whole going forward?
And obviously a key component of agility is user experience, right? Or customer experience. And I don't know if it's the future or already the past from yesterday, but patients are people, so are we. And I think we are all experiencing the same thing. The digital shift is here. Obviously, the pandemic has accelerated or fostered that digital shift. But when I'm going back to people, I think what we all want is care and simplicity. And it does reflect to the way we drug makers need to approach that ecosystem. We are not here to push a drug to the market. We are here to deliver a therapeutic solution to people. And it comes at the very specific price to make it accessible. And it's all about simplicity, or hiding the complexity of our healthcare ecosystems. Again, very different from a country to another, but bring that first simplicity, let people engage the way they want or the way they need. And we are not all digital savvy, for instance. So there are some legacy ways that still apply. Most of us will want to be able to get everything done on a smartphone, but that does not fully exist today. And all in all, as we bring that simplicity, I think the other aspect that we need to keep in mind is that people are seeking for solution. Okay, we live in the era where everything can be Googled. We live in the era where everything can be delivered by Amazon, or almost, maybe not our drugs yet, fortunately for us, to some extent. And we need to respect that because that's what the user research is telling us. We need to deliver solutions which are very accessible, which are user-friendly, which are not limited to a drug, but encompass a full service, which includes, and if we are a bit more specific in the US, navigating all the complexity of our ecosystem in terms of financials, reimbursement, benefits, etc., etc. So I think this is what we believe the aspiration is for people and patients.
Nice. And so just translating that back, and it gets a little bit into, I think, some of the conversation that we hope to have in March, right? But what do you think the future holds for Sanofi's patient services organization? And what does that really mean for some of your ambitions in digital and the ways that we serve and engage with patients?
Yes, so I think, simply said, we are striving to implement the right digital answer to the needs we believe are the right one. As I was mentioning before, it's simplicity, engagement, integrated solutions. And when I'm looking at what it means on a digital level, it's not about connecting the dots. So I'm going back to what I was saying earlier in terms of building the data, the digital core. One of the key pieces is build the data core, build the patient registry, and connect the dots. When I'm saying connect the dots, is that patients today are navigating a very fragmented ecosystem. Actually, their HCPs are themselves navigating a very fragmented ecosystem. I do believe personally that the future is a much better integrated data ecosystem with all the hurdles that we all know in terms of regulation, data privacy. So it's raising a lot of questions. Some of them are very ethical, actually. But the mission is connect those dots with the objective to make things simpler for their consumers. So in our case, the patients. And all in all, try to alleviate the pain and remove some of the stress. And again, as human beings, family members, we have all experienced how stressful facing a serious disease can be. Anything that can be removed from that stress or that complexity, I believe belongs to bringing the therapeutic answer to it. So the mission is simplify the experience. It's also simplify our ecosystem, back on our own evils of spaghetti plates. Simple is beautiful, simple is efficient, and there's also an economical reality to it. At the end of the day, we cannot deliver solutions which are unsavvy, financially speaking. We need to be mindful of that part as well.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll express my own personal belief as well. And if you look at kind of all the money that's being poured into the digital health space and patient engagement space, I actually worry it actually increases that fragmentation rather than helps bring it together as well. And so I think that's a key thing to think about, especially as you're engaging with that broader ecosystem, right? Is how to simplify for that individual, for that person. And I personally just get worried that it's actually going in the wrong direction instead of the right direction out there.
I actually share that feeling and that fear to some extent, because obviously money is going to come as a way to develop more things, to get more creative. There is a very virtuous part of that, which is bring innovation, change the game, make things simpler. But I think we need, as an industry, we need to remain a little bit cautious about keeping things in check. And number one priority in that space for me is interoperability. When I'm saying we need to be able to connect the dots, we do not own the data. And we need to make sure that we can exchange those data. So we need to keep a core that beyond the Sanofi core is an healthcare core that is going to work for all its stakeholders, for sure.
All right, well, I'm going to pivot a little bit again here as we're getting towards the end of the fireside chat section of this. But this is meant to be a lead up to the PAC conversations in March. And I think a big part of what we want to do at the Product Advisory Council is really get both feedback on the roadmap of where we're going with ConvergeHEALTH products, as well as hear from yourself and the rest of our clients on the line as to what they see as the key features, the key things that they're going to need over the next 12 to 18 months, so we can bring that into our product suite and help deliver, if that's a simplified experience, if that's additional automation, or even if that's that ability to bring together more and more of that data ecosystem. And so those are certainly things that I talk very frequently with our product teams about and with all of our clients. But maybe just if you have any other thoughts or key things that you'd want to discuss with this group in terms of new features, new functionality, that we can start getting some ideas flowing well advanced in the pack here.
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of ground already. It promises to be an interesting conversation in March. Obviously, I think for me the focus is on the non-competitive part of the roadmap, so the product roadmap itself. Obviously, it's very tactically understanding in the next 12 months how the roadmap of the product is supporting the evolution of the healthcare ecosystem, especially in the US, if I'm being honest. But I think in a bit more visionary version of it, I would like also, and back to what we were just discussing before, is how we can partner together as industry specialists to shape that ecosystem. And I do believe we need core platforms or core models that we need to share and shape the ecosystem back, because we need to bring the healthcare ecosystem in a state where it's going to deliver that simplicity and that well-being for the patients. And we need to put the nudge and the positive pressure as a group on that ecosystem to make sure that we bring it into a direction which is the right one. So I would love to see a portion of the next meeting dedicated to setting up the vision. What do we believe is the right thing to do in the 2 to 5 years to come, so that we have a common North Pole into which we can point our respective arrows.
Great. Cool. I think that's a great topic to talk about. And again, that's, I think, nothing that one entity in our healthcare ecosystem can do, but really getting that vision and that focus collectively together.
Absolutely.
All right. Excellent. Well, again, that is basically all the stuff that Fabrice and I were going to talk about. I'm going to go over into our Q&A here again. For folks on the line, the Q&A is anonymous, and so feel free to ask either myself or Fabrice whatever you'd like, since we'll all be seeing each other in person in a few months. Fabrice, just one question that came in to me specifically is really as you think about kind of the transformation journey you're on and all of the different therapeutic areas that you're looking at. Do you have any thoughts on how you're approaching, the business process alignment or some of the standardization of business rules across those TAs?
Well, I think it's a very good question. I talked in just a few words before about efficiencies and keeping the financial realism of what we do. I think we need to find the very fine balance between the respect of the differences, especially in the world of specialty cares. Everything is very different. The therapeutic responses are specific to the treatments. We do not manage an over-the-counter the same way we manage an infusion in center, obviously. So we need to find the ways to respect those specificities and make business processes align as much as we can to the patient needs. However, those things come at a cost. So the balance is finding the right features, the right products, which are building a core that we can adapt to those specificities. So I think the strategy, or at least our strategy, is to be non-specific as much as we can in terms of building the digital core, but building it in a way that is extremely configurable so that we can apply the very specific tactics of each brand's and therapeutic areas. Hopefully that does answer the question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a very common problem that we face out there, right? Especially as you're bringing together these multiple systems and really having folks, transact and look at a product instead of multiple different platforms. All right. I actually don't see any other questions in our Q&A window at this point in time. So why don't I just flip, and Carl, if you can flip down to the last slide and give a chance for any other Q&A to come in. Just a reminder for everybody out there on the group, we are doing a series of these lead-up conversations over the next couple of months in preparation for the live event. Again, that'll be held in Denver this year from March 21st through 23rd, and really look forward to seeing a number of folks in person, like we had a couple of years ago out in Denver. Those virtual webinars, be on the lookout for additional invitations to come out. And we're going to focus those on topics both across the life sciences and our healthcare practice around access and pricing, around those clinical outcomes, and a lot of exciting work that we're doing with large providers in the revenue cycle practice, as well as a real shift in what we're seeing for care transformation and platforms supporting that care transformation in the industry. So with that, if there's no other questions, feel free to reach out to myself or any member of the ConvergeHEALTH team if there's anything that sparked interest during this conversation and you'd like to have an offline follow-up. I'm always more than happy to do so. And with that, I think we'll close for today. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Fabrice, for being our first client through this.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everyone. I'm looking forward to see everyone in March.
Excellent.